In the past couple years, more and more NBA teams are in win now mode, and by doing so, they decide to trade all their future assets, or most of them, for players that could help them win right away, while neglecting any impact it could have on their future as a team. The issue with this is that only one team can win the NBA championship, and since more and more teams are trying to do so by adopting this method, some of them will never be able to meet the expected results in the present. And since they gave up so much future assets, they will be stuck in a rough situation for the next couple years. To no one's surprise, the first team in this category is the Los Angeles Lakers. Ever since they got LeBron in free agency, they've been in win now mode, and this has been emphasized when they traded all their young assets such as Lonzo Ball, Brandon Ingram, plus a bunch of first rounders to the New Orleans Pelicans in exchange for Anthony Davis. A couple years later, they went on to trade Kyle Kuzma, KCP, and Montrezl Harrell, as well as their first round pick in that year's draft. So in order to acquire their two star players, they had to give up a total of 4 first round picks, as well as a pick swap for the 2023 NBA draft, meaning that the Lakers would end up with the worst pick between theirs or the New Orleans Pelicans, while the Pelicans would end up with the best one. And also give up 4 young players that had yet to develop at the moment the trade happened, and 2 key role players during the Westbrook trade. By doing so, they tied up around $130 million every single year for only those 3 stars, leaving them with not a lot of capital to spend on key role players to surround them with. As of today, November 13th, they are tied for last place in the Western Conference with a record of 2-10, and it doesn't look like the Lakers' problem will be solved soon because they don't have any assets that a rebuilding team would want, and their current roster isn't built to compete for a title right now. Their only hopes are that at the end of the year, when Westbrook contract expires, they get another star in free agency, or they choose to build the team around LeBron and AD the proper way in order to get them back to the NBA Finals like they were a couple years ago. The second team is one that is very similar to the Los Angeles Lakers, and this team is the Brooklyn Nets. We all know that they were seen as the next big super team when they got Kyrie Irving, KD, and then traded for James Harden, but it's safe to say that they haven't lived up to the hype, and they are now stuck in a weird situation with no real future assets, as they traded most their first round pick to acquire Harden. They were seen as a top 5 contender for the championship this season, and they have not lived up to the hype as of the day of the recording. They are currently sitting at a 5-7 record, which is 10th in the Eastern Conference. The only bright side is that KD has been going off in the past couple games, while Ben Simmons has not looked like the player he once was, and they are paying him $37 million for the next 3 years, which is huge. And well, for Kyrie, well, we all know he's in a weird situation right now, but his contract ends at the end of the summer. And with the trade rumors that were discussed last summer, I don't expect him to sign back with the Nets, so they will lose it, probably him. They also have Seth Curry, whose contract is up at the end of this year, and Patty Mills and Joe Harris at the end of next year. And with the on and off court drama that has been going on in Brooklyn, I would be surprised to see them stay. So they will be left with only KD and Ben Simmons and no real draft pick. So they might end up in a similar situation as when they traded for Paul Pierce and KG. Maybe a little bit less since Kevin Durant is still Kevin Durant, but they will be at the bottom of the rankings for a couple of years, in my opinion. Quick side note on the Brooklyn Nets that I thought was interesting. I saw this post from StatMuse, which is one of the biggest platforms with basketball reference for in-depth stats. They said that they tweeted that the Nets held their opponents to 91.2 points per game since Kyrie's last game before he got suspended earlier in the month of November. And while Kyrie was playing, they were giving up 118 points per game. So the Nets without Kyrie are first in defensive rating and first in net rating for a 4-1 record, which is pretty amazing. So with the way they've been performing without Kyrie, maybe it's time for them to trade him and get whatever assets they can in exchange for him, or simply let him walk at the end of the season, where they wouldn't get anything in return, but maybe he will be in contention for the next couple of years. This is a quick interruption just to say that this is my first video and that my primary language is French, so if I make some mistakes or the editing is not as good or the content could get better, just let me know in the comments and I'll try to improve on that. Now back to the show. The third team is one that went all in this summer by making the acquisition of Rudy Gobert. In this trade, they gave up key players such as Malik Beasley, Pat Bev, and Jared Vanderbilt. And they also added a 2023 first round pick, 2025 first round pick, the rights to pick swap in 2026, their 27 and 2029 first rounders. To say the least, this was a huge amount to pay for a guy as controversial as Rudy Gobert. We all know him for his defense, but other than that, his offense is lackluster. Yeah, he's efficient, but most of his shots are coming from like 15 inches of the rim maybe, because they are all dunks or tip-ins, basically. His perimeter defense is horrendous, but they seem to believe that he was the missing piece for them in order to compete for a title. But the start of the season shows us otherwise, because they are currently sitting at a 5-7 record as of the day of the recording. And the Timberwolves starting lineup, which includes D'Lo and Jaden McDaniels, Cat, and Rudy Gobert, is the worst lineup in the NBA with a minimum of 100 minutes together. And when you trade this much for a player, you expect that the situation will improve tremendously in the following years, and this does not seem to be the case as of right now. And an interesting thing from stat news that I saw is that as of right now, their defensive rating is a 112, which ranks them 19th in the NBA, while last year at the end of the season, of course, they were allowing 111 points per 100 possession, which ranked them 13th in the NBA, which is a slight increase over what they are currently doing this season. And not only is their defense lacking, which is crazy because they traded for Rudy Gobert, who is known as a defensive anchor, but their offense is horrendous compared to last year. This decrease in offense can be attributed to Rudy Gobert's offensive playstyle, which was well recorded as a terrible way of running an offense in Utah, but also to the fact that the three other stars have been struggling offensively ever since the beginning of the season. And this is very important as it is D'Angelo Russell's last year on his contract, and this will play a key part in whether or not the Timberwolves re-sign him. And with the way he's been playing in the last couple of years with the Timberwolves, if I were them, I would try to trade him and get any future assets, as he's still a young player, but I would be surprised to see them do such a thing. So they will probably end up re-signing him at the end of the year, and they will be stuck in a situation where they will have to pay Cat, D'Lo, Rudy, and Ant in the near future. So I wouldn't be surprised to see them struggle for the next 4 or 5 years, if not more. Last but not least is the most debatable team in this video, and this team is the 76ers. I have them in this list because they are always in title contention, but they haven't made the finals in the past couple of years. Now with Harden being on the last year of his deal, well, he has a player option, but for $35 million, I expect him to probably decline it and re-sign with the Sixers. They will have pretty much the same team next season with a bit of change to some of their rotational piece, but they're still paying Tobias Harris almost $40 million this year and next season, and he hasn't shown that he has the potential to be the third star on a championship team. So until his contract is up, they might not make it as far as their expectations are. That being said, their future is not as dark as the other teams, simply because they have more draft capital than other teams in this list, and they also have a bright young player in Tyrese Maxey that is still under contract until 2025. But at this point, if the 76ers don't make it to at least one NBA Finals, it could be considered as a bust of a super team. And that sums it up for this video, guys. Let me know which team do you agree with, and if I missed one, let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe, as this is my first video on YouTube, and any comments regarding editing or whatever will be greatly appreciated, positive or negative. And as always, have a good one.